Thanks. Just on my side, Leighton Lesiani, civil engineering technologies. I've been around 23 years about in the industry, worked firstly in the roads construction sector, and then later moved to Sandral for about 10 years now. I'm in the design and construction division as a project manager in the Northern region. I'm also responsible for overload control operations in Sandra. Yeah, in terms of presentation I'm going to give today from the Northern region, it's just a brief outline of Sandra's Northern region. Current financial year and future projections, Sandra's transformation policy, challenges, interventions in overcoming the challenges that we have. Yeah. In terms of Sandra's northern region is Sandra's biggest region in terms of road network and size. It consists of 4 provinces being Gauteng, with about 705 kilometers of road, Northwest Province, 2,598 kilometers, Limpopo Province being the biggest network with 3,645, and Mpumalanga. In region, we have network, almost 50% of Sandra's road network, about 9,400 kilometers. We have a Gauteng improvement project, which is famously known as the e-toll, or infamously so. That's the big project we have. We have most of the major routes that traverse through our region, major corridors being the N1, the N2 mainly in Mpumalanga, the N12 largely through Northwest and Gauteng and Mpumalanga. The N4 in Mpumalanga and in Northwest, the N17 largely in Mpumalanga, and a short stretch of the N3. As you may know, toll concessions, some are toll roads that Sandral operate. Then we have recently, in the past 5 years or so, been giving them a lot of development corridor, which is currently in construction or past thereof, and a large part in planning phase. We have potentially future expansions of the Gauteng provincial network, which is in planning, subject to availability of funds that will go ahead in future years. We currently have the freeway management system, award-winning management system under our GFIP network. Just an overview that is in all of Northwest, the Limpopo, Gauteng. These are the main corridors, the N1 all the way to Zimbabwe, the N4 running from Mozambique up to Botswana, the N17 linking Gauteng and Swaziland, and the N3, the short stretch of the N3 going south to Durban. Yeah. In terms of Sandra's expenditure projections in the northern region, there's quite a lot of money to be spent to keep our network in good condition and do improvements going into the future, which I'll go into. Yeah. We have our routine portfolio as Sandra streams, mainly the non-toll budget, which is funded largely by the state or entirely. And then we have the toll budget, which is from funds collected, either loans or from toll fees and so on. So these are separate funding streams for our projects. Now in the northern region, as you may see there, in terms of routine maintenance, this is now merely for the upkeep of the roads that we have, in terms of doing patching, road marking, grass cutting, and those type of operations that are critical to preserving our roads. Our budget ranges there in the current financial year. Maintenance, which is your resource type of work, is commonly known, or special maintenance, that is about 1 billion. Then we have our special maintenance, 450 million. Then we have community projects as well. These are some big ones and some that are small ones, where we address problems on our infrastructure insofar as they affect communities. And these projects are largely geared for job creation. Some of them are coupled to major projects nearby as well, or some are done as standalone projects. So there we're looking on average for the next, for this current financial, 3 billion, and we have a dip in 2022, 23. Some of it may still come through as budget allocations are approved. Now, we have also then the Capex. This is where we do major improvements or major works on our roads, rehabilitation, or what we call strengthening in terms of our classification. We have about 500 million to spend in the current financial year. In total, we're looking at 3.6 billion rands. Some of these are works where contractors have been appointed or are to be appointed, and some are still finalizing designs, and the appointments will be made. Which this is where we have a challenge in terms of funding, but we're working through it. In terms of routine maintenance, we have about 2.7 billion in the current financial year, which a big part of it is made by operating the GFIP network, the tolling system, and all of that, and the rest of the state toll routes, and other things like operating the way bridges, operating the toll plazas, and so on. So there we're looking at about 3.1 billion in this current financial year, 2.8 next financial year, and 2.6 billion rands in the following financial year. Okay, next slide. Now, in terms of the toll Capex, as it is currently, we are doing, and there's future projections as well. We show an increase, but that funding is still to be made available or acquired. Current financial year, in terms of strengthening, we're looking at 482 million, and in total about 721 million. And in the future years, we're looking at major toll funding projects, which is the N1 from Kranskop to Polokwane to come through, and parts of the network from Polokwane to Beitbridge. Just to summarize the two streams, 10 billion of total expenditure if we manage to hit those targets and things go well, we don't have typical hiccups that we have where projects are delayed, be it in terms of approvals from other state agencies and so on, and procurement challenges that we come across from time to time, or in some cases, late delivery of designs and so on. The next item will be in terms of transformation policy. As we all know that Central has embarked on a new transformation policy, which was developed from around 2017 and effected later in 20. The fourth sector in terms of need for transformation, that is in ownership and equitable access. One of the main things was to look at ways around limiting number of contracts per company per province. So basically looking at spreading the work evenly. That is still under review or to be implemented. I'll discuss later. Looking at equitable allocation of projects across CIDB grades to ensure that even the smaller contractors get a chance to get work at Central, and to an extent the consultants as well, in terms of how, although they are not CIDB at this stage, but the same approach is carried through. Contracting, that is part of the model to ensure that in compliance with the 30% requirements of the 2017 preferential procurement regulations. And one of the key things is Central wants to have more say in subcontracting, basically to assist the subcontractors in their development or participation in our contracts, to look at issues like dispute resolutions, assist them in technical training where possible, and so on, and contractor development. We also looking at the review of project packaging, just in terms of even upcoming service providers, be it consultants and contractor, can participate, whilst achieving the efficiency that's required. We're looking at all of these things as part of the transformation policy at a high level. Community empowerment, as we all know, lately or in the past couple of years, communities want to participate in projects, rightfully so, be it in terms of providing resources, labor, or materials. So there is in terms of how we procure or requirements that are in our contracts to ensure that communities can benefit from our projects. Supply chain has been key to our is to create space for Black businesses in rigid supply chains, such as materials and equipment, where we're looking at supply of aggregates and so on. How do we get Black businesses to participate there and demonopolize those sectors as part of our transformation agenda? Yeah, competition. One of the areas is in terms of toll operations that is identified where there's very few players. The aim is to look at how Black new entrants can be brought into that sector and sustained going forward. SMME development. There's definitely a need, as we are all aware, in terms of all of this is underpinned by development, the transformation policy to enforce SMME participation in our projects insofar as it's possible. Right? So in terms of our transformation policy, this is the journey so far. It was implemented from May 2018, except parts thereof, which I discussed earlier, that is the 51% blank ownership and limitation to a service provider that is still percentage black ownership to be gradual and subject to review in 2022 and the next policy review. There's been achievements in terms of road maintenance, EMEs and QSEs based on value in accordance with the 2017 preferential procurement regulations. There's an increase in new entrants and consultants working for Sunral in that space of RRM and resale projects where new consultants are coming in. And the 30% targeted as enterprise subcontract requirements apply to QSE and generic category. And in terms of consulting firms or consulting works, the 30% applies from 10 million rands upwards, not 30 million. The provision on the consultants tenders in future, this will then allow more of the emerging service providers or consultants to participate in that space, because the work tends to be large and inflates the prices and distorts the whole thing. The laboratories are to be procured by Sunral in some cases in future, and Sunral is looking at the establishment of regional help desks for SMMEs and so on. These are just some of the highlights in terms of the transformation policy so far. I have my here, Mr. Part of the stage, may be able to some of the questions with the transformation many of you, regional manager of Northern region for a number of years and around the industry for a number of years as well. So he may have questions that are transformation, the latest things. Just of what I spoke about earlier is the financial year that just passed in terms of consultants and contractors, where work was done by emerging micro enterprises. 60% thereof roughly was done by black contractors and 17 non-black, and a portion non-compliant. I'm not sure what that means. So we can see here that is a substantial movement there, or progress being made with regards to transformation. These are some of the numbers or splits that inform that graphic. No need to go through that a lot. Next one will be challenges that we currently experience as a region, and I think these are common in the industry. Wide with other employers as well. Is the one that is critical is the issue of Some of them are not really business forums, but organizations with other objectives. So this is widely known. A lot of them have caused previously disruption of projects and stoppages, work stoppages, which have been very costly to SANRAL and to service provider and affect the quality of work which is provided. So this is a problem. I mean, it is being tackled at even at cabinet level. It is being looked at to what the solutions may be to this, but it is a problem that we have, or a challenge rather, that we have as an industry and need to overcome as soon as possible to deliver services. Coupled with the issue of demand for work localization and so on, where some bodies or people or organizations feel they are entitled to all the work within their region, which there are means or aims to advance that, but not necessarily to isolate work, because that is not the whole intention of the thing. Is yes to support the work to local enterprises and so on, but not exclusively to them. Treasury is still adamant that work in terms of local is South Africa, not specific targeted areas and so on. Yeah. Third challenge, due publicized that we had in our procurement space over the last 2 years or 3 years, we have a backlog, and this was caused by the prolonged engagements that SANRAL was having with National Treasury on the issue of the 30% subcontracting, whether it's done prior to contracting, largely in the construction sector, or thereafter, which is then takes care of the above mentioned issues if managed properly. So we also have what is now the COVID-19 disruptions that has delayed some of the projects or affected operations, delayed procurement, and has cost implications. As we all know, this is hence we are we foresee a potential reduction in budget allocations in the medium term due to funds allocated for COVID-19 interventions. At this stage, the estimate is a possible 10% sector hands together and see how we make up the shortfall, be it in terms of efficient and where possible, and other objectives like job creation to know of the pandemic. So that is what the engineering sector should be looking at. Just to some that I highlight specifically. The first one is the whole issue of business forums. We have intensified stakeholder and communities, designated groups like women, as military veterans, and have conducted a series of people, ways of alleviating these problems or overcoming these challenges, and which then guide move. We have also implemented what is open plan in project documents, all sectors actively addressing, disruptions on projects, etc. I have one of my colleagues is Julexia, so some of the related questions if they do come up. On consultation on the implementation of the transformation policy and the consults also in doing its work. Yeah, regarding the backlog that we have in our procurement phase, specifically in the northern short. With regards to the task force that has been in operation since the first case of COVID-19 was announced, has come up with a lot of good work, which has kept us operating remotely and so on in a structured manner, taking care of risk. So that is in place as we speak, and now everything is essentially running at Central, although the bulk of employees are still working from home, like myself, but business is continuing. On that note, there is the end of, in a short manner, there is a lot more to it, but this is in the time allocated what we could provide. And I'd like to say thank you once again. I will be staying on for the question and answer if there are any.